Hello, world. Welcome back to Global Outreach, the show where we break down the world's most pressing global issues through the lens of power, policy, and the people who shape it. I'm your host, Michael, with Emily. And today we're diving into something that hits close to home for many of you listening right now. For decades, global politics was shaped by boomers, influenced by Gen X, and challenged by millennials. But now, there's a new force rising fast: Gen Z. Born between the late 1990s and early 2010s, Gen Z isn't just tweeting opinions, they're mobilizing movements, influencing elections, and reshaping how power is built and challenged worldwide.
Let's start with the numbers. Gen Z makes up over 30% of the world's population. That's nearly 2.4 billion people, and many are either already of voting age or will be in the next decade. In countries like India and Nigeria, young people form a massive chunk of the electorate. Even in established democracies like United States, Gen Z is expected to surpass the boomer generation in voter size within a few years. But here's what makes this generation unique. They're not waiting to grow up to get involved. They're using digital platforms, grassroots organizing, and creative activism to influence politics right now. In Madagascar, Gen Z activists erupted over chronic power and water shortages. These protests escalated, ultimately eroding the president's support and prompting the elite military unit to side with the demonstrators. The new president was confirmed by the country's High Constitutional Court and formally sworn in, pledging to defend and strengthen national unity and human rights, and to launch a complete overhaul of Madagascar's governance, socio-economic, and administrative systems. Think about how climate strikes exploded globally after Greta Thunberg inspired millions of young people to march. In Hong Kong and Iran, Gen Z protesters used online networks and creative tactics to bypass state control. In United States, Gen Z voter turnout in 2020 was the highest youth participation in modern history. This is more than a demographic wave, it's a political shift.
Unlike previous generations, Gen Z didn't have to adapt to technology, they were born into it. For them, TikTok is a news channel, memes are political tools, and a 60-second clip can shape a global conversation faster than any newspaper headline. Social media gives Gen Z a megaphone, and unlike older politicians tied to formal media, they control their narratives in real time. Example: when young activists in Brazil campaigned against Amazon deforestation, their posts got more global attention than many official press releases. In Kenya, online youth movements challenged government corruption with viral hashtags. Even entertainment platforms like TikTok and Instagram are becoming mini political arenas. This means Gen Z doesn't just watch politics, they amplify, remix, and pressure decision-makers at lightning speed. Now, let's talk about what Gen Z actually cares about. Polls and studies consistently show a few recurring themes across continents. 1. Climate change. This is a top issue from Europe to Africa to Asia. Gen Z views the climate crisis as a survival issue, not a debate. 2. Social justice and equality. From racial justice to gender rights, they're loud, unapologetic, and organized. 3. Digital rights. Unlike past generations, they're deeply aware of data privacy, surveillance, and censorship. 4. Mental health and well-being. Gen Z demands policies that prioritize human dignity and quality of life. 5. Global cooperation over nationalism. They're more globally connected, less tied to rigid nationalism. What's fascinating is that these priorities are remarkably similar across countries, showing how digital connection is creating a shared political language among Gen Z worldwide. Of course, it's not all smooth sailing. Gen Z faces real challenges in turning digital energy into political power. Many countries still limit youth political participation through voting age restrictions or cultural norms. Older generations dominate political institutions, often resisting the pace of change Gen Z demands. And yes, there's also digital misinformation. The same platforms that amplify their voices can also be used to manipulate them. This tension between old power and new energy is defining politics in the 2020s.
So, what happens when Gen Z starts taking over parliaments, congresses, and presidencies? We're already seeing early signs. In Chile, young leaders helped rewrite a national constitution. In Finland, youth politicians are reshaping education and climate policy. In Ghana, young voices are rising through advocacy and civic engagement movements. By the 2030s, Gen Z will be the dominant political generation in most countries, and with their values, tech savvy, justice oriented, globally aware, politics will look very different. Gen Z is not the future of global politics, they're the present. From the streets to the screens, from hashtags to parliaments, they're redefining what power looks like. And here's the real kicker, they're not asking for permission. They're taking the mic, rewriting the script, and making the world pay attention. I'm Emily, with Michael, and this was Global Outreach. If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to share it with someone who's part of this Gen Z wave. And remember, power isn't just inherited, sometimes it's uploaded.